Jan-Maria,
Yes.
Today here in the meeting in Paris,
Yep.
we discussed a question around sovereign cloud.
Yep.
This is a question that we have discussed a lot
of time.
And today I feel that we get some more concrete feedback from SAP around that we need to talk more about the possibility of, or the challenge, I should say, of sovereign cloud.
Yep.
What's your take on the discussion we had today?
First of all, from my perspective, it is impossible to have a sovereign cloud for a country and another sovereign cloud for another country, and so on, and so on, and so on. So we cannot have a sovereign cloud for each country in Europe. We suppose that we should have a general sovereign cloud for all the, at least for all the EU member states. I can count internally also Switzerland, because I know that there is a lot of acquis communautaire, which is 80% also adopted in Switzerland. By the way, the point is that the legislation is not clear enough. We know that in Brussels there are a lot of discussions between especially my country, France, and Germany, about what kind of security standards put in the act that will be produced by the European Commission and then approved by the European Parliament. France is asking a lot of constraints, which for me are natural, not because I live in France, but because I understand the rationales under that, which are how really I can protect and be sure that there are no extraterritorial laws that can get inside my data. Then I think also that what we have learned is that SAP should be much more vocal, and probably they want to, in being a lobby actor towards the European Commission in order to have something moved. For sure, today we are in a sort of no man's land. Every country is having its proper solution. I take Arvato, for example, in Germany. In France, we are waiting for two actors, which are Bleu and Sens. Bleu is made by Capgemini, Orange, and Azure. And Sens should be Thales and GCP, so that they can be hyperscalers with material that somehow it is certified by SAP, but owned by a European company. That should be already a first level of protection towards any kind of extraterritorial acts like the FISA, the Cloud Act, and so on. We have to push as user group as strong as possible in order to have someone who can achieve this. So we need to be influential towards SAP. We have to be influential towards our authorities in our countries. We have to be influential towards the European Commission.
No.
We are thinking about writing a letter to the European Commission in order to push this. And this is, honestly, it is not an idea of us. It is because we see the CIO forum here in France named SIGREF, who already wrote a letter. So we say, but if they did, why? If they've done it, we could do also that. We are just waiting for the new European Commission to be definitely installed after the European election, and write to someone who is really in power and can listen to our letter.
And we also saw that in the discussion that there is both a need and a little bit of clear thinking around making this from it. And I really think that is good that there is some ideas around it.
Yep.
Because earlier, if we went back a couple of years when we were meeting in this group, then it was no, it's not possible to do
Correct.
it. And we saw that they made one sovereign cloud in Germany. And then of course we say, okay, but we maybe need to look at this as well. And as you said, we should have one for Europe.
Yeah.
Or EU, not maybe Europe, but the EU at least. And then, of course, the country here in the West that are likelihood to join would, of course, be happy to join.
Yes, but there is also a consideration that Manos said clearly today. Manos Raptopoulos, the EMEA president. Do you remember when he told us that they were collecting somehow the needs from the different customers?
Yeah.
This is the very first time we hear something about that, because in the very beginning they said, I'm waiting as SAP for the customer to come to me. Now they are collecting those requirements. So this is already a progress.
Yeah.
And I think that here as user group, you in Sweden and us in France and the other members as user group here in Europe, we should be, I would say, vocal in order to say, is there any member who is really interested in pushing his name towards SAP and say, okay, if you really build I would say sovereign cloud, but we can also say a trusted European cloud, I could be interested in leveraging it. This is key, and probably we have a game to play there.
Yeah, I think so. And with the power we have in Sugen, we really have a good position to take this discussion, because I suppose that it's also, even if we are a little bit special here in Europe,
Yeah.
I assume that there is a similar discussion in other areas on Earth. Everything is a question about insights and how the legislation and so on and so forth is.
I have the impression that in Europe we are probably at a mature step.
Yeah.
But I have heard in Sugen meeting that India has some similar considerations, Australia has similar consideration. If I remember correctly, Japan has similar considerations. Probably the region where these considerations are not yet mature enough is Latin America. But not because they do not know what is happening. Probably because they are still struggling about localization, which is for them a bigger problem.
But I can imagine. So therefore, and I think really this question about sovereign cloud or trusted cloud is extremely important. We see how much challenge it is with going cloud. We have some nice example in my country where this is public information that our government organization still runs Skype on-prem because they don't have legislation that they feel that is approving to have internet meetings on Microsoft Teams. But it's also a question about knowledge and insights around where is the security. Because we also know the difference in security on-prem and on cloud, and the security level is normally higher on cloud, but then it's always challenges, especially where it is located and how it's treated. So because it is a cloud, it is a data center, and if you break into the data center, you are there, of course. But people are breaking into Pentagon as well. So who is protected on Earth? Nobody in reality.
Also, it is a matter of money. I mean, big companies can afford to have a CERT, Computer Emergency Response Team, in order to cope with all these kind of risks and with all of these kind of cyber attacks. But in France, we have seen when there was a WannaCry attack, which was, I think, 3 years ago or 4 years ago, really was a devastating attack for some big companies who were not yet protected, where the National Information System Security Agency was clearly called by those companies in support because they didn't arrive to deal with those cyber attacks who really blocked the system. So yes, I think that such a threat has to be taken into consideration as a benefit from moving to cloud. Then this means also changing our way of negotiating contracts, not only with SAP, with all the software editors, because we will need more people able to do contract managing, usage control, internal license subscription auditing, rather than people who are able to develop, because we can expect to consume ready-to-use services. And also, we will need, I would say, more people able to understanding contracts from a legal perspective. So the risk here is that if we get into a cloud, whatever software editor we have, we could have another kind of risk coming after that. When we will have a contract arriving at termination, we will somehow be blocked if we want to get another solution. So the openness of a data model for a specific cloud provider will be really there as the European legislation push for, in order that if I'm not happy with that software editor, I can take another software editor for my business. Because at the end, okay, we are here as SAP user group, but we are here also especially for companies who need to make business value out of a system that they use. So we need to be somehow free, or to be as much free as possible in reducing the dependence that we could have on any cloud operator that we'll have in the future. In the past, you could say, okay, I'm on premise, I can move at least from one infrastructure to another, I can change my integrator, yet I can stay with the editor, but I have three kind of expenses to move: the integration, the licenses, and the infrastructure. With the cloud provider, you will have just one, and you cannot move a part of it, you have to move everything. This will be tricky for the future.